Hey guys, Hastings here and welcome to highlights from round 2 of the alternate one-make championship. This time out we're racing B-class cars around the Catalunya National circuit, and the gods of Forza were very kind to me for once, putting me on the front row from a random grid. So let's see how I get on. Obviously, being on the front row, I needed to make a half-decent start, because otherwise I could only go backwards. It's very unlikely that I'm going to be able to make up a huge amount of positions, considering there's only one car starting ahead of me, who promptly pulled away at the start. He had a very, very good launch. And I wasn't too bad. I was taking to the slightly wider line through the first corner. I was an incident behind, just to make sure that I didn't get caught up in those types of incidents, basically. But it wasn't long before I was already defending from an Audi that was rather close behind me, whereas the Pontiac that started on pole had already mustered quite a gap. It didn't look like I was going to be catching him anytime soon. It doesn't look huge margin on screen, but considering we've been racing for about 6 corners, it's pretty big. And at the hairpin on the first lap, the Audi that I was trying to defend from manages to shoot up the inside and nick second position off me, where I would be immediately put under pressure from a Corvette that managed to go up the inside, going down into the right-hander before the chicane. But I was able to hold it around the outside and get into the first part of the chicane first, meaning that the Corvette would have to tuck in behind if he wanted to get round at a decent line. You can see the Dodge in the background trying to take a different line. The Audi got a very poor run out of the chicane, allowing me to catch up and run alongside, but the Corvette still right behind us. So it was a 3-way drag race going down the pit straight, one that the Corvette would go from last to first in. That thing's pretty damn quick in a straight line. I managed to get past the Audi and was having a look to go up the inside of the Corvette into the hairpin. However, I slightly outbraked myself running wide, and the Corvette managed to pull off a pretty nice cutback. I was giving people lots and lots of room, and for some reason running onto the grass. And even though I had managed to get past the Audi on the pit straight, because of the outbraking myself and the Corvette getting the cutback, I actually lost that position to him again. And I was also under pressure from a Dodge, was not having the best of the starts, giving him room on the inside. I ran slightly wide and lost not 1 but 2 positions to the Dodge and the Ferrari. Slightly further back will sort of mull over me losing lots of positions, and we'll start looking at somebody else. We have a Toyota GT86 defending rather heavily from, I think it was the only front-wheel drive car on the grid in the Volkswagen Scirocco. And I really like the GT86. I've got one at C-Class, which is fantastic. At B-Class, I'm not so sure. I feel that there may be quite a few of those oversteery moments, which could make an interesting battle, because the Scirocco is likely to have lots of nice front-wheel drive understeery moments. So if these guys could stay nice and close on the track, it could be interesting. Although the Scirocco kind of messes up his line through the chicane a little bit, and the Toyota just gets a bit of a gap. Moving back to me now, or the group that I'm in, and there's 4 of us sort of trying to battle over one position. I dropped back, obviously slightly further, and trying to battle way back past the Ferrari, who outbraked himself, and instead of being in front of our group, was now slap bang in the middle of it. So we've now got 5 cars fighting over, what I believe was about 5th position. Going up the top of the hill, or going up towards the top of the hill, the first hill anyway. There's 2 kind of inclines, but yeah, I managed to get to sort of second in the group, which I was pretty impressed with. But the Ferrari had already got past me once and was obviously looking to try and do it again, getting a very good run out of the very fast sweeping corner, and managing to go up the inside. Unfortunately, he locked up the brakes, and as he tried to cut back, there was a little bit of contact with myself. So we both ran wide, and there was almost going 4 wide through there, and coming towards the top of the hill, everyone managed to file back in without any problems. And again, I was still sort of second in the group, but now there was a BMW right behind me while I was trying to get a bit of a gap so I could go and attack the Ford. This was a very hectic section of the race. The Alfa that was in the front of the group earlier on had managed to sort of avoid that bit of chaos at the hairpin and pull out a little bit of a gap. The Ford had also started to pull away a slight amount, and I had also managed to pull away from the Beamer and the Ferrari slightly, who were not pulling away from either of each other, because they were going to have a nice drag race down the pit straight. BMW got there first, but with slipstream, and I suspect a slightly better acceleration and top speed. Ooh, excuse me. Sorry for that. Yes, with its better acceleration, top speed, and the use of the slipstream, the Ferrari managed to get past the BMW. And but these guys were still pretty close. The BMW, I suspect, was slightly better around the corners, because the Ferrari seemed to make relatively light work of getting past in a straight line. And yet, following around the following section, round the hairpin, up the hill, through the chicane bit, the BMW, although you can't see it from this camera because it's terrible, was still right on the back of the Ferrari, and he was not letting him pull away. You can see just how close he is there to the rear bumper of that very expensive Ferrari 250 GTO. And he's still there all the way up the hill, round down towards the corner, and to see if he can sort of do anything. I would suspect that if the Ferrari were to have a bad line anywhere, the BMW would be right in there having a go at taking his position back. As it was, that was not the case, and going down onto the pit straight for the second lap after the Ferrari got past, and the Ferrari had just managed to pull a little bit of a gap, and there was little that the BMW could do about it. Up ahead to watch the Alpha that had pulled away from the initial battling group. He was now closing in on a rather big Dodge. I suppose most Dodges are rather quite big. I'm not actually sure which Dodge it is, which is rather embarrassing, so if anybody can let me know which one it is, that would be great. But the Alpha Spider that was chasing him down, again, I seem to believe that this is one of those battles where the Alpha would be maybe better through the corners, where the Dodge would have the straight line speed, something like that. And going into the hairpin, the Alpha showed its sort of superior cornering ability by stopping on the inside, but and looking to go up the inside of the Dodge. But the Dodge showed its straight line speed by pulling away, pulling away up the hill and under acceleration, even though he had the worst line through the corner. So things could be rather interesting going down onto the pit straight. I suspect that the Alpha is going to have a bit of a better run, but by the time they get down there, I think the Dodge will have a sort of better top speed and better high-end acceleration. Just see what happens. But the Dodge manages to get through the chicane pretty well, and manages to sort of pull a little gap to Alpha, sort of get him out of his slipstream, and avoid any chance of him trying to go up the inside into the hairpin, or run outside if he chooses to do so. But going round the hairpin, the gap would shrink slightly because of the superior handling of said Alpha. And going up into the hill, they're about the same sort of gap as they were last lap, maybe, with the Alpha being very close behind. Wondering if he can have a look, or another look, up the inside into the hairpin. Might not even need to, as the Dodge runs slightly wide, and the Alpha's on the inside, going through the long sort of extended chicane bit there. The Dodge was very out of shape on the curb, and I think he spun it out and lost a fair few positions, although I think there might have been some sort of lag collision or something. These races tonight, or when we did them, were quite bad for lag. I think the you'll see there, the Alpha just completely disappeared in front of the Ford, so the Ford gained 2 positions in all of that quite nicely, I think. Up ahead, and the Pontiac that started on the front row pretty much buggered off from pretty much most of the pack, apart from the Corvette that you can see here, who was, I think he was slowly chasing him down. The Corvette had quite a bit of work to do to get through the pack. It'd be very interesting to see what would have happened if they both started on the front row. Third place was the Audi that had got past me on the first lap and seemed to have a pretty lonely race. The Corvette and the Pontiac seemed to be substantially quicker than the rest of the field, but the Audi didn't have much of a challenge, though the Ford wasn't too far behind. I think they were sort of matching each other's lap times, so the Audi wouldn't have to worry about losing his third or his podium position. In 5th was me. I'd had a very eventful first half of the race, going rather backwards rather quickly on the first lap. I dropped to about 7th or 8th, I think, and then I was in that battle with the Beamer and the Ferrari, which you can see here, who was still going at it for 6th position. Once again, the BMW must have got past the Ferrari somewhere, as he's going onto the straight first, but with the Ferrari looking to go past in a straight line. This time that the Beamer is wise to it and tries to cover the inside line, but the Ferrari is just too quick in a straight line and manages to get clearly ahead by the first corner. Once again, though, I suspect that the BMW is going to stick right on the back, as the Dodge and the Scirocco are going at it in the background. The BMW is going to stick right on the back of the Ferrari throughout most of the lap, as we saw last time out. I can't see any reason why there would be anything substantially different. These guys, I suspect, had a pretty intense battle throughout pretty much all of the race. I didn't obviously watch those two for the entire race when I was watching these replays back to get the filming done. But every time I flipped my camera onto one of these guys, the other one was in shot, and I suspect that I would really like to have a race like this once in a while, where you're battling with the same guy the whole race, because they can be really interesting and very rewarding and enjoyable, even if you do lose the position or come behind the guy you're battling. And once again, we're going to go down onto the straight with a BMW right behind the Ferrari. Last time this happened, the Ferrari just got a better run and managed to pull quite a gap. This time out, the Ferrari looked to have a pretty poor run through the corner, or the last corner, and the Beamer could pull alongside with a better run onto the straight, but the Ferrari just has too much straight line speed and manages to pull ahead, so the Ferrari wisely ducks straight back into the slipstream to see if he can do any damage by pulling out and going up the inside of the first corner, but he can't, and they even ran over the grass to boot. Slightly further back, and a Volkswagen Scirocco would find out that the curbs are very nasty just at the top of that hill. You can just run over them and the car will just throw you out. Nick was about to come back on the track and spotted that Nissan, so wisely dived back onto the grass, but in doing so lost a little bit more time and was now very under pressure from the big Dodge that's been frequently or infrequently noticeable in this video. I don't even know what I'm trying to say there, but he's been noticed in this video a few different points, a few different cars, a few different battles. A very eventful race. Firstly with the likes of the Alpha and other people as well. So, but the Dodge seemed to be pretty damn quick through down the pit straight, and managed to go around try and hold it around the outside of the first corner, but that's not really going to happen, and compromised his line up a hill and ended up running wide onto the gravel, giving the Scirocco a nice bit of breathing space to hold on to the position that he was very near to losing. Back up at the front, and the Corvette was indeed catching the Pontiac, and it could have turned. This could turn into a very interesting battle for the lead. I suspect that the Corvette was maybe quicker in a straight line. I don't know. It was extortionately quick in a straight line, going past myself and the Audi on I think it was the second lap down the pit straight. But I'm not sure how it would fare in relation to the Pontiac. I didn't really have any chance to race him because he was so far in front. But the Corvette has a very big sideways moment coming through the very fast chicane leading into the hairpin, and that allowed the Pontiac to just gain a bit more space. And with not too many laps to go, it looks like that would be sort of the chances blown for the Corvette in trying to chase down the first place Pontiac, who would just now, as I say, have a nice bit of breathing space, and maybe there's less pressure on him now, so he's less likely to make a mistake. And the Corvette again doesn't have a brilliant line through the chicane, so there's even a bigger gap by the time it gets down onto the straight. Further back in the field, and the Ferrari and the Beamer were still battling it out for what I believe was 6th position. If you can see me, am I in? No. Yes, I'm in there, so they're still battling over 6th position. Once again, the Ferrari had outbraked himself going into the first corner. That seemed to happen a few times, but the Beamer seemed to get caught up in that. Maybe he was trying to look at the Ferrari to gauge his braking points, and pretty much followed him wide, basically, and they both had a really bad run through the final corner, and the Ferrari luckily somehow managed to stay ahead. But as per usual, the BMW would not be giving up anytime soon, and stayed right on his bumper throughout the entirety of the first section of the race. And going into the hairpin, the Ferrari once again seemed to outbrake himself. I think that Ferrari needs to get better brakes, but this gives the Ferrari a sniff of a chance to try and go side by side up the hill, but that puts him on the outside for the long right hand corner, so it's very, very unlikely that you're going to go around the outside of anybody there. But he's still within touching distance of the Ferrari, going through not the hairpin, through down into the chicane that leads into the final corner. But as we've seen a few times before in this video, to say the least, the Ferrari would just have superior straight line speed and would simply pull away from the BMW. And I'm trying to think, I can't remember what lap we're on now. That might have been... no, I don't know. Let's just carry on. Yeah, the Ferrari would would create a gap that was big enough to defend, or to create a gap big enough so that the BMW couldn't attack, go into the hairpin. I had a complete brain freeze there. I'm sorry about that. Yes, but the BMW would, as per usual, be pretty close to the Ferrari that was slightly ahead. Throughout the final corner of the last lap, this is the last lap, that's why I was getting confused, I thought it was the previous one, but even with a mistake in the final corner, the Pontiac would come home to finish in first position. If the Corvette that finished second eventually had not made his mistake earlier, he might have been in with a chance coming out that final corner. Third position would be the rather lonely Audi with the Ford Escort not too far behind, but nowhere near close enough to be looking at a move. And I would come home in a very lonely fifth. I think you can just about see the edge of my car there in the screenshot a moment ago ahead of these guys. And I had a pretty lonely race after the first sort of half or so where I was battling with a lot of people. But these guys definitely would not have a lonely race, battling with each other pretty much the entire time over 6th position. And it would be the Ferrari that would end up coming out on top, finishing just ahead of the BMW. Behind them in 8th place would be the only front-wheel drive car in the Volkswagen Scirocco, just managed to get back ahead of the Nissan that he avoided when he went off track. Behind them, and in 10th and 11th, would be a Subaru and a Dodge. And the Subaru looks like he's got 10th position, pretty sewn up with that gap to the Dodge. But there's always something special going to happen on the last lap. Last time we had pretty much a photo finish for second, and this race we've got a photo finish for 10th. The Dodge somehow manages to outdrag the Subaru and into 10th position to nick the final point. So these are the final finishing positions from the first race. There's no point me reading them out to you as I did last week. That was a complete waste of time. You can read them on the screen, and I've talked through it pretty much anyway. The DNFs weren't just because people didn't make it to the line. They're the 3 cars that did unfortunately lag out of the race. Like I said, it was a pretty poor showing in terms of lag this time out. So for round 2, we've got a reverse grid. So let's see how I was to get on. Obviously, because of the way we had to reshuffle the grid at the start, everyone was starting in this ghost mode. So running down into the first corner could be pretty scary when people start popping back in to being solid again and you can't actually drive through them anymore. You're going to have a pretty big collision. And going down into the first corner, I tried to sort of do what I did on in the first race and take the nice wide outside line to try and avoid any incidences. Everyone sort of got through the first corner. I think there was one car spinning out, but there was a bit of afterwards. Oh, excuse me. There was a bit of afters going into or coming out of the hairpin as well. There was a few cars that were lagging behind a little bit, but there wasn't anything major. I'd got through it pretty nice and cleanly, and was sitting just in front of the Ford Escort that was, I think it finished just ahead of me in the first race. But going down into the hairpin, it would go up the inside and take the position off me, so I'd be sitting behind him once again. Hopefully this time I'll be able to stick a bit closer and see if I could challenge him. There was a bit of an incident just in front of us. The Escort just about got through, but I had to brake to avoid it, which is very unfortunate, meaning that I would lose positions to the Toyota GT86 and the Race 1 winning Pontiac. Fortunately for me, the BMW didn't manage to follow them through. Looking very lonely without the Ferrari in close comfort. Oh, he's just about there in the background. But as per usual, we come down onto a nice long straight, so we're going to have a bit of a drag race to see how everybody's straight line speed measures up. I wasn't very confident in my car in terms of straight line speed or handling. The way that this series works, if you don't know about that, then there's a video somewhere explaining it. But I have to use only Mercedes, and there's only a certain amount of B-class cars I can choose from. The C-class cars are pretty much, there's 3 to choose from, so I'm only going to use 2 of those. And then I can use this one, or basically 1 or 2 others, and this was the best of a bad bunch. So I always knew I wasn't going to be hugely competitive at this circuit. But anyway, enough about me. Let's rejoin the race and actually look at what's going on. The Corvette that was very unlucky to sort of not challenge for the lead in the final race was making his way through the pack after starting pretty close to the back of the grid. But also that got involved in the incident that meant that I braked for and had to lose a few positions. He lost even more because he was involved in the incident. Going up the inside of the Ferrari, there's a little bit of body contact. They're both manages to just regain control. There's nothing doing hugely about that. And going into the chicane, the Chevy manages to take the position off of the Ferrari, who looks to be under a little bit of pressure behind from the Alfa. Jumping up to me though, I'm looking under a little bit of pressure, maybe, from said Corvette that's just got past, or recently got past, the Ferrari, as that thing is damn quick, and I'm, like I said, not very confident in my car and my pace around this circuit. Going around the final chicane, I was kind of worried because I'd already seen the Corvette blast past in a straight line once in the first race. I didn't really want that to happen again, so I tried to maximise my exit to hopefully pull a little bit of a gap, which I think I managed to do rather well. I was kind of helped out from the slipstream from the Toyota in front, which so kind of put me on the attack after being on the defensive. I was trying to have a little look at going past the Toyota, but I wasn't quite close enough. I had a much better run around the hairpin though, and going up into the sweeping uphill section, the Toyota was very slow, and I took to the curb, just about avoiding the gravel, to go up the inside. I don't think there was any contact there, but the Toyota had a big moment and spun himself out. Maybe that was another victim of the Catalunya curbs, which means that there was now no car in between me and said very fast Corvette, who, when approaching the final chicane before the final corner, would once again be very close to the rear of my car. I'd knock a cone out the way to try and maximise whatever I could. The Corvette would have a look at going up inside around the final corner, and that looks like, or it felt like from my perspective, a very malicious pit manoeuvre. The only reason I left it in because that was a very spectacular roll that I went for, but unfortunately there was actually a huge amount of lag there, and the Corvette lagged out of the race a few seconds later. And as you can see, there's a huge lag spike throughout the whole race, with these guys currently being in ghost mode. But yeah, the Corvette was very unfortunate in this round. Unlucky to not challenge for the win in race 1, then unlucky to lag out of the second race, and annoyingly for me, kind of killed my race because I dropped to the back of the grid after that roll, and I won't feature anymore in this race because I may have had a few unaided spins and mistakes when I was pushing very hard to catch up with the rest of the field. So we'll just sort of focus on what everyone else managed to do, and the BMW would be once again fighting with a red car, although this time it would not be a Ferrari, who is just about in the background, it must be said. But the BMW would be fighting very closely with the Alfa that did... I can't remember where he finished in the first race actually. Oh, he lagged out of the first race after running quite high up. Like I say, it was a pretty bad run for lag throughout this round. But the Alfa was looking pretty quick and looking to try and get past the BMW. I was wondering if now the BMW would suffer the same fate when being followed by a red car going down into the pit straight. Would the Alfa have enough straight line speed to blast past? And it looked like, if not to blast past, he would have enough straight line speed to pull alongside as the BMW goes defensive into the hairpin. The Alfa looked at trying to execute a cutback to get back on the inside of the first part, or the second half of the chicane. Unfortunately for the Alfa, wasn't quite able to pull it off, but coming up the hill, manages to get a very good run and sort of kind of blindsides the BMW to get up the inside around the right hand at the top of the hill. But there's a little bit of contact. I think the BMW should have given him a bit more room there. Fortunately though, Alfa did manage to hold it and didn't spin out or anything, so we can relive or live to attack again at the BMW later on. Up in first position would once again be the Pontiac. Gradually worked his way through the field, and now the Corvette wasn't in the race. It hasn't really got anyone to challenge him for the lead. Second position was the Ford Escort that done very well, and the Audi would once again be... Oh, the Audi was actually running in fourth this time out with the Dodge. I just about seen them running in third position. So the Audi's looking to try and catch up with that Dodge and see if he can nick a second consecutive podium position in these 2 rounds. I think it's 1 lap later now to where the Alfa last tried to get past. Didn't want to go up the inside there this time. Had a look maybe going around the outside, but that didn't really work. Trying to get past the BMW. But he is running very, very close behind. get a very good run out of the extended chicane, and see he's now up the inside going into the hairpin. Can he make it stick? He's pretty much a car length in front now. Can the BMW run around the outside? No, it doesn't look like he can, and he's now under an amount of pressure, maybe? Is that the right phrasing? Not really sure. I can English, promise. But yes, the BMW would now be, after defending and losing out a position to the Alfa, would now be defending again from a very familiar Ferrari. It's the point that I've been trying to make for quite a while. And going down onto the pit straight, the Ferrari would get the inside line around the final corner. And we know what happens when these two get into a drag race. We've seen it quite a few times before in this video. But the BMW does seem to be faring slightly better this time out. Once again taking the defensive line, forcing the Ferrari to go around the outside. I think the Ferrari had maybe not such a good run through the corner. And once again, the Ferrari needs better brakes, because he outbraked himself massively into the first corner, running out onto the grass, giving the Beamer a nice bit of breathing space. That's the one. Coming now to near the back of the grid, and a Nissan and a Mazda would be fighting over what I believe would be 11th position, although it might be 10th. I think these guys were fighting over the final point scoring position. Going into the extended chicane, the Nissan makes a very good opportunistic move to dive up the inside of the Mazda, though manages to run wide through the corner on the second part of the corner and lose out. And he would lose out twice as much as me trying to catch up to the rest of the pack would jump up the inside at the hairpin after the Nissan gets his very compromised run. And that would be an extra position for me, but a very bad luck for the Nissan. Just looking at the it was 11th place that they were fighting over. But due to very poor editing on my part, I didn't actually catch anybody going over the line, but that was the final lap. The Pontiac won both races. The Ford was second. The Audi did get past the Dodge to have 2 podiums, and you can read all the rest of the positions yourself. You don't need me to speak them for you. I did manage to get a few positions back after dropping to the back of the grid, but the second race is a much shorter sprint race from reverse grid. So there wasn't a huge amount that I didn't have a huge amount of time to make any positions up, and like I said, I wasn't particularly confident in my car anyway. So now we move on to the overall standings after race 2. After 4 wins out of 4, the Pontiac was quite commandingly in first position, with the Audi and the Chevrolet after the Chevrolet's lag out in round 2. Very close battle for second. I would be down in 5th, just a few points behind, or 5 points behind the Ford in 4th. Some interesting battles shaping up. And then 6th, 7th and 8th, all relatively close as well, just 6 points separating those two. There's an actual tie for 9th between the Alfa and the Dodge, and both sat on 14 points. And below them was the BMW on 10, and then a number of people that had just done one race or just been slightly uncompetitive on single points only. Thank you very much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and leave a comment as well if you want to. So until the next one, Hastings out. Goodbye.